My name is Lorraine, and I am 68 years old. For the past 6 months, I have been living in what I thought was a temporary arrangement in my daughter Claire's guest room, trying to outrun the silence of my own empty house after my husband Paul passed. It started with Love with her worried voice on the phone saying, "Mum, you shouldn't be alone right now." And I believed it was about grief, about us leaning on each other. I believed it until one Tuesday night, long after the house had settled into what I thought was a peaceful sleep. I got up for a glass of water and heard a low murmur from the kitchen. The tone was not one of late-night intimacy, but of urgent, harsh conspiracy. And what I heard next froze me in the dark hallway. Before I share what shattered my world, I am curious about yours. Where are you listening from right now? If you have ever had a moment where your trust just evaporated, put the word vanished in the comments below. And if you want to hear how a woman my age found the courage to walk out into the dark, please hit that subscribe button. It means more than you know. The early days at Claire and Greg's house were wrapped in a kind of tender warmth. Claire was my only child, and after Paul's long illness and passing our connection, felt like the only solid ground left. She would come home from her accounting job tired, but we would cook together the way we used to when she was a teenager. Greg, her husband, was all smiles and helpful hands back then. He carried my suitcase upstairs, called me Mama L, and said how great it was to have me. My house, the one Paul and I shared for 40 years, sat empty 30 minutes away. Just thinking about walking into that quiet hurt my bones. So I told myself this was right. A temporary bridge over the deep river of loss. But the first crack appeared so quietly I almost missed it. It was over dinner. Greg was talking about the rising property taxes in their neighborhood. Then he casually looked at me and said, "You know, Lorraine, it might be smart to just sell your place now. The market's hot. We could help you invest the proceeds, take the stress off you." It was the "we" that stuck in my ear. I just smiled and said, "Oh, I am not ready to think about that yet." Claire patted my hand, but she didn't say anything. A few weeks later, Greg brought up finances again. He had a whole speech about simplifying. "Wouldn't it be easier," he said, "if you just consolidated your accounts with ours? I could manage everything for you. Pay the bills, handle the investments. You shouldn't have to worry about a thing." His smile was wide, but his eyes were fixed on mine in a way that felt like a test. My stomach tightened. I was a retired school teacher, but I was not a simple woman. Paul and I had managed our finances together for decades. I thanked him for his concern and said I would think about it. That night, I heard them talking in their room, their voices a low hum through the wall. I could not make out words, but the tone was tense. The next morning, Claire seemed tired and distant. Then Greg's mother, Brenda, came for a weekend visit. She was a woman with stiff blonde hair and eyes that reminded me of a bird, quick and assessing. Over salad, she sighed and said, "It is so wonderful of you kids to take Lorraine in, but it is a lot for a young couple. There are such lovely assisted living communities now, like Sunny Acres. They have activities people your own age. You would not be a burden at all." The word burden hung in the air like a bad smell. Greg nodded along, saying, "We just want what is best for everyone." I looked at Claire. She was staring at her plate, pushing lettuce around with her fork. I felt a cold draft right through my heart. It was no longer just about grief. Something else was moving in my daughter's house, and I was starting to feel like the furniture they were trying to quietly rearrange. The air in the house changed after Brenda left. It grew thicker, harder to breathe. Greg's helpfulness dried up. He started working later, or said he was coming home just in time for a silent dinner. He began leaving brochures for Sunny Acres on the coffee table, the kind with smiling, silver-haired couples playing chess. He would mention almost to himself how expensive groceries had gotten how the utility bill was shocking this month. The comments were never directed at me, but they landed at my feet like little stones. One evening, their bedroom door was left ajar. I was coming up the stairs with a cup of tea when I heard Greg's voice, low and insistent. "Claire, you have to see the bigger picture here. This is about our future, our family. Once everything is settled, we will have the space, the financial freedom. We can finally focus on having a baby. A real one." Claire's reply was a muffled sob. "But Greg, she is my mother. It is wrong." His voice turned sharper. "Wrong. Letting professionals care for her is wrong. Letting us build our life is wrong. Do you want a child or not?" The silence that followed was worse than the words. I stood on the stairs, the teacup shaking in my hand, hot liquid sloshing onto my skin. The pain was a distant thing. The real hurt was deep inside, hearing my daughter cry and feeling utterly powerless to go in there. If I confronted Greg, it would put her in the middle. I felt like a ghost in my own life. That night, I dug through my large suitcase, the one I had not fully unpacked. At the very bottom, beneath layers of sweaters, my fingers found a smooth manila envelope. It was from Paul's lawyer, Mr. Davies. Paul had given it to me a year before he died. His hands already too thin. "Lorraine, if you ever feel in over your head, you call him first. Promise me." I held that envelope to my chest. I had not felt in over my head with grief, but I felt it now in this house that was becoming a cage. A few days later, Greg made his move. He announced it at breakfast, all cheerful efficiency. "So, Lorraine, I took the liberty of setting up a tour for you. Sunny Acres has an open house this Saturday. They have a gorgeous facility, swimming pool, the works. Claire and I thought it would be good for you to get out, see what your options are." He said it like he was offering a trip to the museum. Claire would not meet my eyes. I saw the trap clear as day. If I refused, I was the difficult, ungrateful mother. If I went, I was playing into his plan. So I made a decision. I looked up and gave him the most gracious smile I could muster. "Why, Greg, that is so thoughtful of you. It would be nice to get out." His smile turned triumphant. I felt a strange calm settle over me. It was the calm of knowing the enemy's next move. I went upstairs, and for the first time I opened the envelope from Mr. Davies. The night before the tour, I could not sleep. The digital clock on the nightstand glowed 2:47 a.m. The house was a tomb of shadows. My mind raced with plans and fears. I finally got up, my throat parched. I needed water. I moved slowly, my hand skimming the hallway wall, avoiding the floorboard. I knew creaked near the guest room door. The staircase descended into deeper darkness. I reached the bottom step. The kitchen was pitch black, but a faint bluish light pulsed from the direction of the breakfast nook. And then I heard it, a hushed, urgent voice. Greg's. He was not just awake, he was whispering with a fierce intensity I had never heard from him. I froze, pressing myself against the cool wall of the hallway just out of sight. The words became clear, each one a shard of ice plunging into my chest. "Yeah, Mum, I know. Tomorrow. Sunny Acres. The tour is just the first step. They have legal consultants right on site. Very discreet. We will get the papers signed there. Power of attorney, everything. Once she is in there." His voice dropped even lower, but I heard every vicious syllable. "Once she is in there with the emotional fragility diagnosis Dr. Evans is ready to document. I will petition for guardianship, full control." He paused, listening to his mother on the other end. Then he let out a soft, ugly chuckle. "Claire. She will be upset for a little while, but she will come around. She will see it as a relief, and with the money from selling her house and cashing out those retirement accounts, We can finally pay off the second mortgage on this place. You can move into the in-law suite. No, it is perfect. She is just a lonely, trusting old woman. She will not suspect a thing. My blood did not run cold. It stopped. It solidified in my veins. My breath caught, trapped in my lungs. I saw it all, the whole horrible picture. The cozy prison of sunny acres, the legal theft of my freedom and my life's work. My daughter manipulated into silence, and Brenda moving into my space. I was not a person to them. I was an obstacle, and then a resource to be liquidated. The betrayal was so complete, so venal, it felt like the floor had dissolved beneath my feet. I clung to the wall, my knees watery. For a long minute there was only the pounding of my own heart in my ears and the icy void of his words. Then from a place I did not know, I still possessed a spark ignited. It was not fear. It was fury, pure and clarifying. It cut through the shock like a scalpel. They thought I was a trusting old woman. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I knew exactly what I had to do. I moved back up the stairs like a phantom, soundless and intent. I closed my bedroom door and locked it, a simple click that felt like the first act of war. My hands, which should have been shaking, were steady. The emotional storm had passed, leaving behind a landscape of cold, hard resolution. I sat on the edge of the bed and grabbed the small notebook I used for grocery lists. In the dim light from the street lamp outside my window, I began to write my cursive, swift and sure. Heard G on phone with his mother. 3:10 a.m. Mentioned Sunny Acres tour, legal consultants on site. Plans to get POA signed. Mentioned Dr. Evans and falsified emotional fragility diagnosis for guardianship. Goal: sell my house, cash retirement, pay off his mortgage, move his mother in. Called me a lonely, trusting old woman. I wrote down the date. This was my evidence. Then I retrieved the envelope from Mr. Davies. Inside was his business card and a brief, reassuring note from Paul. I picked up my cell phone. It was 3:45 a.m. Too early to call, but not too early to send a message that would be waiting for him at dawn. I typed an email detailing everything from the financial pressure to the brochures to the conversation I had just overheard. I attached a clear photo of my journal page. I ended it with Mr. Davies, I believe I am in serious danger of financial and personal exploitation. I need your immediate counsel. I am planning to leave this house before sunrise. I hit send. The whoosh sound was the most hopeful thing I had heard in months. Next I packed. Not everything. That would be too noisy. Too slow. I opened my suitcase and filled it only with essentials, my important documents folder, passport, social security card. The deed to my house, bank books, the title to my car, which Greg had suggested I sell for convenience. I took a few changes of clothes, my medication Paul S. wedding band, which I wore on a chain, and the framed photograph of him from my nightstand. Everything else, my books, my nice linens, the rest of my clothes could stay. They were just things. My freedom was not. Finally, I took out a piece of stationery. I had to write to Claire. The words came slowly, heavy, with a love that ached. My dearest Claire, I heard something tonight that means I cannot stay under this roof another night. I am safe. I love you more than anything. Please keep this note for yourself. When you are truly ready to listen, really listen, call me. Your mother. I folded it, slipped it into a small envelope and wrote her name on it. I would not leave it in the open. I crept to her bedroom door, which was closed. I slipped the envelope underneath, just enough that the corner would be visible from inside when she woke. It was 4:35 a.m. Dawn was still an hour away, a faint hint of grey at the edges of the sky. I remembered the key hook by the garage door. My car keys were there, mingled with theirs. I took a deep breath, shouldered my purse, and lifted my suitcase. It was time to walk out of my daughter S house and back into my own life. The sound of the front door closing behind me was not a bang, but a soft, final sigh. The cold night air hit my face, sharp and cleansing. I loaded my suitcase into the trunk of my sensible sedan, the car Greg had rolled his eyes at. Just an old Corolla, he had said. We could get you something nicer with the sale. I got in, started the engine as quietly as I could, and pulled away from the curb. I did not look back at the dark windows. I drove not toward my old house, but away from it, following the highway east. I needed distance and anonymity. An hour later, I checked into a budget motel off the interstate, paying with my own credit card. The room was bland and smelled of cleaning products, but it was mine. I sat on the edge of the bed as the sun finally rose, painting the ugly curtains orange. My phone rang at 7:05 a.m. It was Mr. Davies. His voice was all business, but beneath it I heard a protective anger. Lorraine, I got your email. Are you secure? Good. Do not speak to Greg. Do not agree to anything. Change your online banking passwords right now. I will call your bank and put a flag on your accounts. We need to move fast. By noon, I had done everything he advised. I had spoken to a very serious woman at my bank who put extra security on all my profiles. Mr. Davies had drafted a new durable power of attorney and healthcare directive, naming my friend Evelyn in Florida as my agent. He emailed them to me, and I signed them digitally. With every click, I felt a layer of Greg S. intended control slough away. My phone buzzed incessantly. Claire over and over. Finally, around noon, I answered. Mum. Oh my God, where are you? Are you okay? Her voice was raw with panic. Before I could answer, the line rustled, and Greg S.'s voice came on smooth as oil. Lorraine, we are worried sick. You are not yourself. This is irrational. You need to come home right now so we can take care of you. I felt a chill, but my voice was calm, the one I used to use when a child was lying to me. Greg, I know everything. I heard your entire conversation with your mother at 3:00 this morning. It is over. Please put my daughter back on the phone. The silence on the other end was profound, stunned. Then I heard a choked sob and Claire whispering, What? What is she talking about? The final confrontation happened 2 days later. Mr. Davies insisted on accompanying me. We went in broad daylight to retrieve the rest of my belongings. Greg S. car was in the driveway. He opened the door, his face a mask of strained concern that quickly twisted into something uglier when he saw the lawyer beside me. Lorraine, what is the meaning of this? Bringing a stranger into our family business. His voice was low, threatening. I said nothing. Just walked past him toward the stairs. He grabbed my arm, his fingers tight. You are not well. You need to stop this nonsense. Mr. Davies stepped forward, but I shook my head. I looked at Greg's hand on my arm, then up into his eyes. I am perfectly well, Gregory. You are the one who is sick. Now let me go. He released me with a scoff. As I came back down with a box, he blocked my path to the door. You walk out that door with your things, you are burning every bridge. Claire will never forgive you. He leaned in his voice, a venomous whisper. And who will believe a confused old woman over me? That was it. The slap of justice was not physical. It was verbal, and it was public. I set the box down and raised my voice so the neighbor watering her roses next door could hear. Greg, you are a con man and a manipulator. You tried to steal from a widow and lock her away. You will never come near me again. Then I reached into my purse and pulled out the document Mr. Davies had prepared. I handed it to him. This is a temporary restraining order, and my lawyer will be in touch regarding civil action for fraud and conspiracy. I have recorded evidence of your plans. The colour drained from his face. He looked from me to Mr. Davies to the neighbour who was now staring openly. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. It was the look of a man whose perfectly crafted trap had just sprung shut on his own hand. That look, that utter defeat, was my victory. I picked up my box, walked to the car, and did not look back. In the upstairs window, I saw a pale, tear-streaked face watching. Claire. My heart broke, but it was a clean break. The key turned in the lock of my own front door with a sound I had forgotten. Not a click, but a solid, familiar thunk. I stepped inside. The air was still and smelled faintly of lemon polish and memories. The silence I had run from 6 months ago greeted me, but it was different now. It was not an empty silence. It was a waiting silence. This was not a house of ghosts. It was a house that had held its breath for me, and now exhaled. The first thing I did was call a locksmith, then a security company. I was not paranoid. I was prudent. My friend Evelyn, true to her word, flew up from Tampa. For a week, my house was filled with the smell of her strong coffee and the sound of her laughter, a noise that chased the last of the shadows into the corners. She helped me sort through the pile of mail, reconnect the utilities in my name only, and plant bright yellow marigolds in the front garden bed. A colour Paul hated, but that made me smile. The legal machinery once set in motion by Mr. Davies ground forward with grim efficiency. Greg, faced with the prospect of a lawsuit and the journal evidence which Mr. Davies described in legally devastating terms, folded. He signed papers relinquishing any claim, real or imagined, to my affairs. There would be no guardianship, no sale of my house. In return, I did not press criminal charges. It was not mercy. It was strategy. A clean, permanent severance. Claire was the real wound. She called her voice hollow. She had found files on Greg-S computer spreadsheets, with my assets listed as liabilities brochures for Sunny Acres, with notes in his handwriting about which unit had the best resale value. She had discovered the second mortgage, the debts he had hidden. The man she loved was a stranger, and the mother she had failed to protect was now a fortress. We met for lunch at a quiet diner halfway between our homes. She looked years older, fragile. I did not say I told you so. I opened my arms and she fell into them weeping. I am so sorry, Mum. I was so blind. I just wanted a family so badly. I held her and rocked her like a child. You have a family, I whispered. You have me. And you always will. She moved out of the house she shared with Greg and into a small apartment. She started seeing a therapist. Our weekly lunches became our anchor. We talked about everything except him. We talked about my garden, her workbooks we were reading. The mother-daughter bond, strained and nearly severed, began to knit itself back together, stronger at the broken places. One afternoon, sitting in my living room in Paul's old armchair, a beam of autumn sun fell across the rug. I realized I was not looking at the empty space where his chair used to be. I was sitting in my chair in my sun, in my home. The grief was still there, a quiet companion, but it was no longer the landlord of my life. Healing is not a straight line. It is more like tidying a very neglected room. You find pockets of dust in unexpected corners. Some nights I still wake at 3 a.m., my heart racing. But now, instead of lying there frozen in fear, I get up. I make a cup of tea. I sit in my quiet kitchen, and I look out at my dark yard, and I own all of it. The quiet, the dark, the safety. It is mine. I joined a book club at the local library. The women are a mix of ages, some retired like me, some younger. We read novels and drink terrible coffee and argue about the characters. I have made a friend, a widow named Helen, who loves birdwatching. Sometimes on Tuesday mornings we go to the park with binoculars. It is a small, new joy. My life is smaller than it was before Paul died, and again smaller than the brief, chaotic interlude at Claire S. house. But it is dense with meaning. It is a life I chose. I tend my garden. I talk to my daughter. I manage my own money with Mr. Davies, reviewing things once a year. I updated my will, leaving everything to Claire in a trust that is protected from any future husband, from any future Greg. It is not about distrust. It is about love and the wisdom to build a fence around it. The lesson I learned was not to build walls around my heart. The lesson was to build a door in that wall, with a lock to which I alone hold the key. Kindness is not a weakness, but naivete can be a danger. That little voice in your gut, the one that tightens when a smile does not reach the eyes, or an offer feels too convenient, you must listen to it. That voice is the true guardian. For years I thought it was fear. Now I know it is love, love for myself. So now I ask you, have you ever ignored that small voice, only to wish you had listened? What did it take for you to finally hear it? Share your story in the comments below. Let us remind each other we are not alone. If this story resonated with you, if it gave you a little courage for your own battles, please give this video a like. It helps more people find these conversations. And if you want to join me for more stories about finding strength in unlikely places, please hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Share this with someone who might need to hear it today, that it is never too late to take your life back. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Wherever you are, whatever you are facing, be your own guardian. Be kind, but be shrewd, and never ever forget that you hold the key. I wish you peace and the quiet, fierce courage to protect it. Good night.